Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, April 14th, 2026 regular business meeting of the Olympia City Council. For the record, we have a quorum with Councilmember Gilman excused tonight. So I do just want to mention that City Manager Bernie is in Washington, D.C., advocating for the Deschutes Estuary and is participating in Puget Sound Day on the Hill. So we have Debbie Sullivan, who is our assistant city manager, as acting city manager for tonight. I also want to mention that council met for a joint meeting with the Port of Olympia just yesterday. Over a dinner meeting where we discussed several of our joint priorities, specifically around sea level rise, economic vitality and development in our downtown, and so on. And we appreciated that meeting. We've now met with them for a second time. This time we both have new members, both on the port and on the council, so we're looking forward to developing and building stronger relationships and working together on a shared vision for our community. So I thank the Port of Olympia for having us. And so with that, I'd love to entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of the agenda as published signify by saying aye.
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 We have an agenda. Is my mic on? Now it is. All right, so our first item tonight is item 2A on our agenda, and it is a special recognition proclamation recognizing Fair Housing Month, and we have a shared reading beginning with Councilmember Madrone.
Whereas the Fair Housing Act, enacted in April 11th, 1968, enshrined into federal law the goal of eliminating racial segregation and ending housing discrimination in the United States. And whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, sex, familial status, national origin, and disability, and commits recipients of federal funding to affirmatively further fair housing in their communities. And
whereas Olympia is committed to the mission and intent of Congress to provide fair and equal housing opportunities for all, and whereas our social fabric, economic, health, and environment are strengthened in diverse, inclusive communities, and
whereas more than 50 years after the passage of the Fair Housing Act, discrimination persists and many communities remain segregated. And whereas acts of housing discrimination and barriers to equal housing opportunity are unacceptable, and
whereas the City of Olympia has completed work to identify housing disparities and barriers through formation of regional goals to affirmatively further fair housing in Thurston County. And whereas the City of Olympia supports efforts to assist individuals harmed by discriminatory practices in Washington State, such as the Covenant Homeownership Program, and
whereas the City of Olympia has joined the Black Home Initiative to strive to right the wrongs of past discriminatory practices and commits to doing all it can to assure Black homeowners get the opportunity to purchase homes, and whereas the City of Olympia will co-host a Thurston County Home Buying Expo with Thurston County Realtors Association on April 18th, 2026 to expand access to home ownership for Thurston County residents. And
now, therefore, be it resolved, the Olympia City Council does hereby proclaim April 2026 as Fair Housing Month in the City of Olympia, as an inclusive community committed to fair housing and to promoting equal housing opportunities for all residents and prospective residents of Olympia. Signed in the City of Olympia, Washington, this 14th day of April 2026, Olympia City Council, Dante Payne, Mayor. Okay, and now I'd like to invite up Krista Lenson, who is our Senior Housing Program Specialist. Hi, Krista.
Good evening, Council. For the record, Krista Lenson from the City of Olympia's housing team. And I would just like to invite up a couple of community members to provide some brief comments tonight. First, I have Steve Chung, who's the president-elect of the Thurston County Realtors Association. And followed by that, Cassandra Wyckoff, who will be here from the Fair Housing Center of Washington.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Steve Chung, and I serve as President-elect of the Thurston County Realtors, representing more than 750 real estate professionals who serve thousands of buyers and sellers across the region each year. On behalf of our members, I want to sincerely thank the City of Olympia for the Fair Housing Month proclamation and for your continued partnership in supporting equitable access to housing in our community. Fair housing is not just a policy, it's a promise that where you live should never be determined by who you are. And as realtors, we believe it's important to acknowledge that our profession has not always lived up to that promise. The history of housing in this country, including within the real estate industry, includes practices that excluded, segregated, and limited access to home ownership for many. We cannot change history, but we can and must learn from it. Today, that commitment shows up in the work that we do every day. Realtors are bound by a strict code of ethics that goes beyond the law, requiring us to provide equal professional services to all clients. We invest in ongoing fair housing education, implicit bias training, and programs designed to expand access to home ownership. Here in Thurston County, that work is strengthened through partnerships like the one that we have with the City of Olympia. On April 18th, we're proud to once again host the Thurston County Home Buying Expo at the Olympia Center, in collaboration with our local jurisdictions and community partners. This event is designed to connect aspiring homeowners with trusted resources, education, and support, helping break down barriers and opening doors to home ownership. Fair housing is about more than compliance. It's about the opportunity. It's about building stronger communities, creating pathways to stability, and ensuring that the dream of home ownership is accessible to everyone. We are grateful to stand alongside with the City of Olympia and work and remain committed to being part of the solution today and every day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council, for the proclamation. My name is Cassandra Wyckoff, and I am the test coordinator at the Fair Housing Center of Washington. Our agency serves 23 counties across western and central Washington, including the City of Olympia and Thurston County. Our goal is to create inclusive communities, advocate for potential victims of housing discrimination, provide training for housing stakeholders, and conduct testing. We focus on identifying unlawful practices within housing industries to bring forward complaints and possible litigation to achieve compliance with the Fair Housing Act and the Washington Law Against Discrimination, to ensure greater housing opportunities for all. Today, I stand before you when our civil rights are under unprecedented attack. Housing is not a luxury, it's not a reward for good behavior, and it's not a prize for loyalty to any political party. The Fair Housing Act was passed only 11 days after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. And here we are almost 58 years to the day, and we are busier than we ever have been before. As municipalities work to bring more housing online, we must stress that not much will change about who is living on our streets if the same discriminatory practices are allowed to continue unchecked. We must require fair housing education for rental property owners, managers, HOA and COA board members, city councils, planning commissions, and anyone who makes decisions about housing in the rental, sales, lending, homeowners insurance, and design and construction industries. Our call volume is too high, our workload is unsustainable, and the situations that we hear from our community members on a day-to-day basis are too dire to lose focus or momentum in this area. We urge you to review how the City of Olympia and Thurston County are building capacity to prevent discriminatory practices before they even start. And we here at the Fair Housing Center are here to help. We thank you for your work, and to the Thurston County Association of Realtors as well for being partners to ensure equitable housing and access for all.
Thank you very much. Can we give a round of applause to our speakers, to Steve? Thank you both. Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Cassandra, for your comments. Are there any comments from the council? All right, seeing none. I just want to say that this proclamation this year in particular is important because unlike in previous years, there's been some rulemaking in the Department of Housing and Urban Development that's been changing the rules related to regarding removing some of the discriminatory effects regulations that are in effect and the attempts to do that. I'm proud to say that our City of Olympia staff took action to do public comment opposing those changes to the rulemaking. So thank you to our staff for that. It's also unique because of the fact that we have our state's Covenant Home Ownership Program, which is also under attack by this department, which is, many of you probably know, Washington State has a history of being part of restrictive housing covenants. The City of Olympia and Thurston County included in that. And so this year, it's pretty special for us to mark this by proclamation, because despite the fact that these attacks are underway, we are here to say that no, we're not going to go back, that fair housing is more than ever more important, and that, in the many efforts over the years since Dr. King, as was mentioned, we are trying to expand opportunity, not go back. So Steve, Cassandra, thank you. Krista, you as well. Thank you all for your work in making sure that all people, especially in our community, have access to housing. So thank you for that. And I have a copy of the housing proclamation here signed. So if you want to come forward to take a photo, and I will present it to you. Thank you. Thank you all again. All right, so that's going to take us to item 2B on our agenda, which is also a special recognition proclamation recognizing Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month, which is also a shared reading, beginning with Councilmember Barrett.
Whereas the future of the residents of the City of Olympia rests in the hands of one of our most vulnerable and cherished assets, our children, and
whereas all children deserve to live in safe, stable, and nurturing environments which promote their healthy growth and development, and whereas child abuse, neglect, and other trauma are recognized as serious public health problems affecting both the current and future quality of life in our community, and
whereas it is a responsibility of our community to ensure parents, caregivers, and other adults who influence the health and well-being of children have the support, knowledge, and concrete resources necessary to ensure all children thrive to their greatest potential, and
whereas effective child abuse prevention strategies succeed because of partnerships among agencies, school, religious organizations, law enforcement agencies, healthcare providers, and business community, and
whereas the City of Olympia continues our commitment to protecting all members of our community and call upon all community members to join together to increase public safety and prevent the future abuse and neglect of our children, and
now, therefore, be it resolved that the Olympia City Council does hereby proclaim April 2026 as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month and calls upon all community members, state agencies, faith groups, medical facilities, elected leaders, businesses to increase their participation in efforts to support families, thereby preventing child abuse and strengthening the community in which we live. Signed in the City of Olympia, Washington, this 14th day of April 2026, Olympia City Council, Dante Payne, Mayor. And now I'd like to invite up Jill Severn to share a few words and accept the proclamation.
The last time I spoke here was to campaign for the building of Coyote Village. We had been a tent camp for a long time, 7 years, that had to move from one church parking lot to another so that no one community would bear the burden of having homeless people in their midst. As a volunteer there, I spent a lot of time talking with homeless people in the dark of night, and those conversations gave me new insights, one of which was that when you prevent child abuse and neglect and trauma, you prevent so much more. The people in the camp, certainly not all of them, but absolutely a big majority, had all experienced abuse, neglect, and trauma during their childhoods that set them on a trajectory that led to homelessness. Now, I'm very aware that the sort of main stem of the river towards the flood tide of homelessness is the lack of affordable housing. But there are many tributaries to that mighty river, and the abuse of, and neglect and trauma of children is one of the larger ones. And so it's so important that we recognize those connections, that we recognize those relationships, that we recognize that when children are abused and that abuse is not remediated or acknowledged, the results will not be good for their futures or for the futures of the people with whom they interact. And so my plea is that we focus on this prevention of child abuse and neglect, because it prevents so much more than that for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jill. Don't go anywhere yet. I just want to see if there are any comments or questions from the council. Any comments or questions? I was wondering if you might be able to tell us about the significance of the pinwheels you have here, and I know that Shelley has some back there too.
Shelley's the pinwheel expert.
Thank you. I don't like to follow Jill. I like to go before Jill because she's always got a zinger in there. Shelley Willis, Executive Director of Family Education and Support Services, and thank you for recognizing the health and well-being of children in your decision-making. The pinwheel is a national symbol of child abuse and neglect action taking to prevent. It's recognition that our risk and protective factors, and every time we see a pinwheel, we think about all we can do in our community to promote health and well-being now with our children, so our future community is healthy. Thank you. And we have pinwheels for you, and hope you will plant them around the city here and help remind people to take action on behalf of children.
Great. Well, thank you both so much. And I have a signed copy of the proclamation here to present to you, and we can take a photo if you like.
Great.
Thank you both very much. Okay, so that concludes the special recognition portion of our agenda for tonight. So we are going to move on to public comment. So at this time, I am going to turn it over to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. All
All right. We have quite a number of public commenters, and I understand Council Vanderpool's whispering to me that there is one additional public commenter that didn't get a chance to sign up. Is that correct? Okay. All right. So at which point at the end of the in-person, I will call you up. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and call a few up, and you have, for those that have not been here before to public comment, you have 2 minutes. There is a 2-minute timer right over there, and then before you, there will be green, yellow, and red, and so if it's green, you're good. If it's yellow, it just tells you that you have about 30 seconds, so please wrap up your comments, and at red, please conclude your comments. Should you continue going when your time is up, I will have to stop in at some point, but if the timer stops at 2 minutes and you're mid-sentence, go ahead and feel free to wrap up your sentence. And if I do mispronounce your name, please do state your name for the record. All right, we have Cece Coates, followed by Eric Cedar, followed by Sam Callendy. And you can go ahead and speak when you're ready. The mic is on.
Hi, I'm Cece Coates. I've been an Olympia resident for 35 years, and before I was disabled, I was a union carpenter with a hobby farm out at Slater Kenny. We are not meeting the moment. I am homeless, I am disabled, and I am living in a van. I have a stalker who's been inflicting hate crimes on me, and he's been using homelessness services to come after me. He's calling up multiple times, he's calling the police, he's lying about my conduct. I've been living in the same place for 6 years, right next to my church, Gloria Dei Lutheran. They tell me I have to park on public land. If I do not move my van every single day, they have the right to steal my home and put me in dire circumstances without any shelter. I am old, I am disabled, I am frail, I'm a senior. That is a death sentence. That is a eugenics program against us. HUD is no longer covering any increases in rent nor issuing any new vouchers. So you get priced out, you go onto the street. We are going to see senior citizens and disabled people turned out onto the street to receive brutal treatment from the state, where they will steal everything you need to survive. We need to meet the moment. My neighbors want me living there. My church wants to take me in, but it is illegal for anybody to take me in for various circumstances. What we are doing is a fascist agenda. I do not know where my life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness is to be harrowed for the rest of my life. Where is my fair housing? There is no new housing for me. You need to change this system now. This law is brutal and harrowing.
Thank you, Cece.
Thank you. And we're going to keep going with public comment. There will be an opportunity. There will be an opportunity at the end of public comment for council to comment. Please know that we are listening. Eric, if you'd like to come up and share your comments when you're ready.
I would. Thank you, Mayor, council members. My name is Eric Cedar, and I'm on the board of the South Capitol Neighborhood Association, which is also represented tonight by 3 other board members sitting right over there: Sue Hedrick, Morgan Montez, and Jerry Apple. I'm here to thank you on behalf of our board and our entire neighborhood for your continuing support of the Neighborhood Matching Grants Program. This has provided in the past a way to bring our neighborhood together with each other and with various city and county agencies and nonprofit organizations. Your approval of today's recommendations will allow us to continue and expand this popular program. I would also like to thank Brittany Gillia for her guidance throughout the year on this program. On behalf of our board and neighborhood, thank you.
Thank you. Next we'll have Sam Callendy, followed by Wynn Valentine, followed by Ash Valentine.
Good evening, Council. The last we spoke, I gave you a heartfelt plea to see and support the trans community with eyes wide open and a deeper understanding of how our lives are impacted in our current culture and climate. Today, I stand and I ask for your action. There is a significant overlap between the trans community and the houseless community, and both of these communities, on their own, experience horrific levels of abuse. They are targeted for existing and treated as pests, vermin to be shunned and shoved out of their communities. But we are humans, all of us in this room, and all of the houseless that we look down on and sneer at with disgust, they are humans too, who need to be heard, who have a right to exist, a right to breathe and eat and seek shelter. We are all one bad twist away from losing everything ourselves. One false accusation or criminal charge, one tragic accident or illness away from losing our jobs and all of our resources. So many of us like to look at the houseless and assign fault to them, because they must have done something wrong if they ended up here, because obviously it couldn't happen to us. Obviously we've lived life right, and they must have lived life wrong. But that's bullshit. We are one and the same. The system fails us over and over, and then when we are at our lowest, it chases us to the fringes so the rest of society doesn't have to witness us suffer, wither, and die. The city must acknowledge the fact that houseless people are people, that they are part of our community just as much as you and I, and they deserve support, respect, and they deserve a city that listens to them and helps them in the ways they ask. They have voices, they have desires, they are living their lives to the best of their ability. Our city should be built with their lives in mind, with the compassion in our hearts and not our toxic fears and disgust.
Thank you.
I guess that's me. Fair housing isn't just a two-story suburban home. It's actually meeting everyone's needs. It's not legal motions wrapped in social justice language. It's helping people no matter what it takes. We can't wait 5 years to make it slightly easier to get into $300,000 of debt. It feels tone deaf to celebrate a proclamation about fair housing while our neighbors are getting pelted in the rain outside, trying to stay dry and safe. What about the kids who live on the street with no help for safety? What about the adults that the system has failed and pushed away? While we pat ourselves on the back about meeting the promise of capitalism and consumption, people are dying out there. How is that fair? Expecting people to buy their way to being safe and secure isn't fair and is unrealistic for almost all of my peers. We cannot be expected to pay our way to some promised fairness or equity. How is anyone supposed to be safe if buying a house is the only way forward? How are my friends supposed to stay safe when they have no respect or rights the second they get evicted? Why are people treated like dogs the second they don't have a mortgage in their name or don't pay $1,200 minimum to a landlord every month? We really need to do better.
Thank you. Next we have Ash Valentine, followed by Brent Barnes, followed by Sue Hedrick.
I'm going to have to speak fast to get this all in. Many of the people in this town and in cities across America with homes, cars, jobs, and enough spare cash to buy Starbucks every day look down with disgust at their unhoused neighbors. They see them as a blight and demand that something be done about them. They want them removed from their sight because seeing them makes them uncomfortable. You know what? I too feel disgust and discomfort when I look at our unhoused neighbors. I feel disgusted that this city spends more than $32 million a year on police and has people sleeping in the street. I feel discomfort that people who spend thousands of dollars a year on DoorDash will drive past someone who can't afford to eat and look down on them. We have more than enough resources to support our neighbors, and we choose not to. That is a disgrace. But it isn't enough. enough. It isn't enough that we don't care about the suffering happening right before our eyes. We spend taxpayer money to harass people with nowhere to go. 3 weeks ago at 7:30 in the morning, I came across 3 armed men surrounding a person on the ground, sobbing and hyperventilating. I exercised my legal right to observe the cops as they loomed over this vulnerable person, a person who was begging them and telling them that they love the cops in the hopes of not being harmed by them. After they let this person go, because they didn't do anything wrong, the cops walked 5 feet away to harass another person who was sleeping rough. I was told by these same cops that I was a threat for following them, that they would use force on me if I became a threat, despite being 15 feet back and exercising my constitutional right to observe them harassing our neighbors. This is the support we give: harassment and isolation. The cops do not want to be observed while they abuse our most vulnerable. The city pays thugs to hurt and scare people with little to their name and nowhere to go. We push them out so they have no settled place to stay and take the few possessions they have in the process. It is not enough to have a few shelters with restrictive rules and that require the abandoning of people's scant possessions. It is not enough to leave them be and ignore them. We must stand with our neighbors and protect them. We must see them as the people they are, people who are struggling and vulnerable, people with little resources and support in a system designed to dehumanize them. Our neighbors are cold, ill, hungry, and struggling. We owe them kindness and understanding. I call on all of us to listen to them, to ask our neighbors on the street what they need and provide it to them.
Thank you very
to
much.
stop dictating from on high what they need
Thank
to be
you very
handled,
much.
but ask them to
Thank you very much. Thank you.
whole, happy, and safe.
Brent, you can begin when you're ready.
Brent Barnes. A couple weeks ago, city managers, Olympia and Tumwater School District officials, Port Executive Director, and the Evergreen State College president met to discuss the future of the Evergreen State Pool. The messaging after that meeting was that the pool was not a viable solution for the need for regional aquatic center. The municipality should be pursuing funding mechanisms for building that center. It has never been an either-or issue when talking about the regional aquatic center and the Evergreen Pool. It was maintaining current programs at the pool and pursuing the building of a regional aquatic center. The goal was to increase pool capacity within the region. We can work to build an aquatic center and continue to utilize the existing Evergreen Pool in the meantime. A new pool will not open tomorrow. Realistically, it will be 10 to 15 years away. So where will our children learn how to swim after June? The YMCA is over capacity and their own facility infrastructure issues, and they have their own facility infrastructure issues to contend with. The aquatics community may be gone if you do not support keeping the pool open, and the voters will be hesitant to trust leaders who ask them to wait for 10 years for a long-term facility that could cost upwards of $100 million without being willing to support a $1 million fix of an existing facility that would bridge that gap in time. From a fiscal responsibility standpoint, it's really a no-brainer. I'm not asking the city to provide any funding. That can be found elsewhere. But instead, that you vocally support the need for this pool to stay open past June and use this as a proof of concept for future aquatic center funding asks to the community. Keep in mind, the Evergreen State College is a taxpayer-funded state institution. We have already paid for the building of the TSC's pool and the recreational center in which it is housed. So I thank you for this time to allow me to advocate for the pool.
Thank you. We have Sue Hedrick, followed by Grace Fletcher, followed by Annette Rizika.
Mayor Payne and members of the City Council, I just wanted to add my thanks to my fellow board members, Eric and the others here, for supporting the Neighborhood Grant Program. Really appreciate it. I also want to just add a little thanks and shout out to Susan and Josh. I think that Council in 10 is like the best, brilliant invention ever. I listen to it all the time. I have the app on my phone, and I just think it's wonderful. I try to tell everybody about it. So I ran into Susan downtown when I was getting gelato with my granddaughter, and I told her about it, but I thought since I was up here anyway, I just thought I'd mention that too. So just want to say it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Grace.
Good evening, council members. My name is Grace Fletcher, and I'm here as a neighbor from the Southwest neighborhood. I want to start off by acknowledging the Neighborhood Matching Grant Program and extending my appreciation of the continued investment in neighborhood-level efforts. However, I'm here today because I want to speak about something concerning that is happening in our community. One of our unhoused neighbors, who is a trans woman, has been repeatedly targeted. There have been repeated reports made to the city claiming drug activity in an effort to have her removed. These claims are not true. She also recently experienced direct harassment, including someone driving to her home, yelling hateful slurs, and vandalizing her property. I'm not here to speculate on whether these actions are connected, but the impact is the same. This is targeted harm against a vulnerable person, and I want to be very clear, as a community, we will not stand for this kind of behavior. Weaponizing city systems to harass someone is not acceptable. Filing false complaints to try to force someone out of a space is not community safety. It's abuse of process. If there are concerns, then let's be adults about it. Let's talk to each other. Let's work through issues in a way that reflects the kind of community we actually want to live in. One rooted in respect, accountability, and care for our neighbors. Safety in Olympia has to include protection from harassment, discrimination, and intimidation, especially for people who are already more vulnerable, including our unhoused neighbors and our trans community members. I'm asking the city to take this seriously, not by responding to repeated false complaints as if they are legitimate, but by recognizing patterns of misuse and protecting residents from being targeted in this way. Because if systems meant to serve the public can be used to repeatedly harm someone without accountability, then they are not working the way that they should. And to whoever is making these calls or engaging in this harassment, this is your neighbor, and this behavior is causing real harm. We can and we must do better than this. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Annette, after you, we'll have Crystal Smith, followed by Jaden Hypatia.
Hi, I'm here as a friend and neighbor of Cece, who has been experiencing ongoing harassment and discrimination, as well as dehumanization that is enacted in city policy towards our homeless community members. Under duress and fear for her safety, Cece has been forced to move from her previously secure location, where she has been a welcome and welcoming member of the community. I am saddened and angry that she has been forced to relocate after harassment both from a stalker as well as from the city and city police. As April has just been declared Fair Housing Month, I wonder, where is the fair housing for Cece and others like her? Where is the fair housing for our houseless community members? Where is the fair housing for our disabled community members? Where is the fair housing for our trans community members? Is it only fair for those with money to access it? Before Cece chose to move due to targeting and fears for her safety, the city and police were harassing her to move. I wonder where you would have her move to. What do you imagine you are doing by forcing houseless people to repeatedly relocate? What are you doing to provide alternatives and safety for unhoused members in our community, people who are much more vulnerable than those who have houses? If you don't have answers to these questions or alternative options for her and others in her situation, then you are enforcing inhumane and dehumanizing policies. For Fair Housing Month, I suggest you focus on creating fair housing opportunities for those without the money to access it, a population that is growing and will continue to grow. Your current policies and practices do not give meaningful alternatives for people who cannot afford or access current housing options. Unless there are meaningful options for people, all people, fair housing is a lie that you have just proclaimed publicly. I encourage you to choose to get honest. Olympia is not an inclusive community with fair and equal housing opportunities for all unless it includes CC and every homeless person, disabled person, and trans person.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and, if we could please hold our applause so we can have, we can continue public comment. Crystal, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Crystal Smith. I'm the mom of an Olympia High School swimmer and made public comments, you might remember, about Evergreen State College's pool closure at your March meeting as well. First of all, thank you for listening to concerned citizens like me and meeting with various stakeholders in the last month. I truly appreciate this, and I'm asking you to take another step as well. I'd ask the City Council to please help us keep Evergreen's pool open for the next year. I appreciate the Council's work toward building a regional aquatics facility in the future, and I'm excited about that prospect. However, the local aquatics community needs a pool right now, while the details of the new facility are planned throughout the next few years. And luckily, we have a beautiful one with 11 swimming lanes in Olympia. Keeping Evergreen's pool open can bridge the gap between our immediate need and the future plans to meet it. In fact, our estimates show that maintaining Evergreen's pool will cost a fraction of the future aquatics facility project's budget. There are over 60,000 children living in Thurston County, and according to the classes listed on their websites, local venues can offer swim lessons to fewer than 3,000 kids per month. But it doesn't have to be this way. The City of Olympia can take action right now to help alleviate this problem. The local aquatics community has not seen any evidence convincing us that Evergreen's pool needs to close in June. Instead, we could utilize the next few years to build successful and innovative programming together so that we're ready for the new facility's opening. Thanks for your consideration and time.
Thank you. After Jaden's comment, that will conclude the signed up list of in-person. That would leave, sorry, I'm not sure what your name is. So you will go after this person. Thank you.
I had asked and had been told that they would have an opportunity to speak.
We'll make an exception. Thank you.
Let's talk about what a public servant is and what a private servant is. A public servant would stop at nothing to ensure that nobody is dying of starvation in a society where we have more than enough food to feed everybody. Nobody is freezing in a rain-soaked sleeping bag when there are thousands of unoccupied homes and storefronts. If we had this public servant, unhoused trans community members like Cece wouldn't have to be here begging for their lives. After having her van egged, after she's been subjected to hate speech, stalking, and after being harassed by the police as if it's her fault she has nowhere to go after the private sector has been allowed to deny her and thousands of others housing because we don't have those public servants. Instead, we have private servants who are tasked to maintain infrastructure enough to sustain investment opportunities for the private sector. And I guarantee those investors only care about the people in this town to the extent we're alive enough to be consumers and producers of products and wealth we'll never have. And if we can't consume or we can't produce or check the boxes of investability on their terms, we're as good as dead. And when this crisis is brought to the attention of the private servants, they will turn it into an investment opportunity for the private sector, except it actually doesn't solve the problem, because what good is a home buying expo if you can't afford a home because there are no price controls and rent controls protecting the public from inflation and rent hikes, no enforcement of the income required to live, no protections from evictions, no opportunities for people who don't have any roof over their heads in the first place. You might argue that this is all out of your control and goes outside the bureaucratic processes, but no, you are not limited by bureaucracy. You are adults with agency hiding behind a fascist bureaucracy that allows you to rest easy every night thinking, wow, we did it. Our people beg to differ, so which servant are you?
Thank you. And so if you could please, as you're doing your public comment, if you could just state your name for the record, that'd be great.
Thanks. They grabbed this sign in right as I came in, so the sheet. I'm Monica Whitman. I'm a parent and a fairly new resident, excuse me, to Olympia. One of the first things that I did was started digging into the neighborhoods that I'd be living into and the politics of the local community. I have loved ones that are trans, which is one of the reasons that we had moved here. And I also recently stumbled across this excellent study that was done for I think it's the Social Justice and Equity Commission. I wanted to thank the council for funding this. It's an excellent body of work. It's also very telling, and the stats in this document are gutting, to be quite honest. And for every CC, there are hundreds of other trans people in our community that are under extreme distress right now. this is not just hyperbole and conjecture. This report shows that trans people are experiencing discrimination in our city at highly disproportional rates to their cisgender peers. It also called out American Indian and Alaskan Native populations, which is another group of neighbors that I feel like should be highlighted when talking about this important work. And I couldn't help but to notice proclamations are important. I'm really glad that they did this tonight, but you can also tell by what's not in the proclamation sort of where the focus of the community is. And I would just encourage this body to, next year, if you do the same, to include Alaskan Native members and trans members, to specifically call out those communities and show a commitment to what we're doing as a city to make lives a little bit easier, because it is these are unprecedented times, and when we know better, we do better.
Thank you. And just for folks that are listening in, the report that the last public commenter was referencing is called Experiences of Discrimination in Olympia, and it can be found on our website. I'm glad folks are reading it. Please state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Gary Myers. I'm an engineer, and I have a application permit for building a house in Olympia. I wanted to talk to the council and mayor about proportionality. The Sheets decision, the Supreme Court decision, unanimous decision, requires that every jurisdiction be able to prove the constitutionality of every single permit condition in every state of the nation. I want to advocate that this is a good thing, and I want to talk about the 3 or 4 questions that it takes. It's when there's a permit condition imposed, the proportionality test simply asks, what is the public benefit or intention of that permit condition? The next question is, well, if it is enforced, will that benefit be realized? And the third question is, what is the cost or burden on the owner? And then the fourth one is this roughly proportional? Every time I've had a concern about something that doesn't feel fair, these questions would work it out. So anytime we have a sidewalk to nowhere or an absurd outcome in a permit, these permit conditions, or these tests of the permit condition, will root it out. So my proposal is that at the point of service, in real time, these questions are asked. And if the permit condition seems to score out poorly or less constitutional, then the permit staff, permit administration should be given lots more liberty to be flexible on enforcing the permit condition. It's better to enforce that or impose that in informal talks than it is in a legal proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, council members, for letting me speak tonight. My name is Stephanie Scott, and I am a Lacey resident, and I'm here tonight because the issues of housing and trans rights in Thurston County are linked between cities. Declaring sanctuary status without corresponding action is dangerous. Words matter. They send a message about who belongs here and who is safe here. But right now, for an increasing number of people in the community, those words are not matching reality, and real harm is happening in that gap. I'm here tonight to speak in support of Cece, and I'm also here tonight as the mother of a 23-year-old trans young person who's living at home because they cannot afford to live on their own. Tonight, you've heard directly from an unhoused disabled trans woman about her lived experience. Cece doesn't have stable housing. She doesn't have a safe place to park the vehicle she lives in. She doesn't feel safe because she isn't safe. She's being harassed by strangers who see her as a target and by the very systems that are supposed to protect her at a time when trans women are in danger, not just in our country, but in our state and in our community. Related to the proclamation tonight, we must pair discussions about fair housing with acknowledging the reality that many in our community can't even afford to rent a room. In practice, fair housing also means protecting the rights and safety of people whose housing is a vehicle or a tent, a reality for many that is only becoming more prevalent as the wealth gap widens. Sanctuaries should mean something real to Cece and to other trans people who live in Olympia or who will flee here from other states because of what the terminology implies. Sanctuaries should mean Cece can sleep without being threatened. It should mean she can exist without being harassed. I know that trans people in this community have already done the work to teach and advise this council and city management and to provide clear asks to put sanctuary into action. Trans-led groups have sat in meetings, shared their stories, explained their needs, and carried the emotional weight of advocating for their own safety and dignity over and over again. That is emotional labor that should not be ignored, and it should not be taken for granted. It must lead to action if Olympia is going to claim sanctuary status. I'm here tonight to elevate CC's experiences and asks, hold space for the anger, fear, and grief the trans community feels, and to ask this council to revisit the labor countless trans community members have put in to teach you.
Thank you. With that, we're finished with in-person public comment. We have a few online, so we'll just give staff a moment to get the virtual up and running. And I first have Casey Ackerhelm on my list.
Casey is not signed in.
Okay, what about Tom Crawford? Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, council members, at this evening's meeting. Again, my name is Tom Crawford. I'm a board member of Thurston Climate Action Team. And this evening, I want to simply thank you all on behalf of the 1,000+ supporters of TCAT and Climate Action in Thurston County for your courage and foresight in adopting the Residential Energy Performance Rating and Disclosure Ordinance, or the so-called Home Energy Ordinance. And that's included in today's consent agenda. In addition to being among the first regional initiatives included in the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan to be carried out by local government, this will provide important benefits to home buyers, home sellers, workers, and the general public. It will help working people who are in the market for a home reduce their energy costs, will help home sellers target the most effective energy efficiency improvements prior to selling their homes, will create good jobs in the energy efficiency sector, will improve awareness and education among buyers and sellers and the general public about clean energy and energy efficiency, and will help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, thereby helping to stabilize our climate and improve air quality for everyone. I also want to express appreciation to jurisdiction staff who did the careful research and drafted the ordinance, and to community members who participated in focus groups and other discussions to help ensure a well-designed ordinance. Thank you again for your service to our community, and TCAT looks forward to working with staff and you all to support implementation in whatever way would be most helpful. Thank you again.
Thank you, Tom. With that, we'll move to David. Is David on? Okay.
Hello, yes. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. David Webb, City of Olympia. I'm calling in tonight to ask the council members individually and collectively not to claim to be progressive and then create conditions where the people you claim to care about aren't safe. You need to think about whether or not you are actually a sanctuary in impact and not just like limiting discrimination, but actually supporting people if they are threatened, if they are attacked, rather than having a police department that seems to target unhoused people and target that can't live, they can't afford to live. So Olympia is kind of a place where many people can't afford a home. I moved here a few months ago. I'm privileged to have a great community and a lot of different types of support, but this place isn't affordable. I mean, sure, compared to Seattle and Boston, but not for many of the people living here. Tonight's proclamation is kind of blatant propaganda and patting yourselves on the back despite the ongoing harm and actively problematic approach. Celebrating a realtor organization and promoting their event is wildly tone deaf. I don't know who you think can afford houses here. Maybe, again, people trying to leave Seattle. So, you know, the police harass the unhoused community. It seems like it's one of their prime directives, and I understand that aesthetics and appearance might be important to a city, but if you're not actually providing resources and services sufficient resources and services, because I know you're doing stuff, it's just obviously insufficient. So, I guess what I'm really trying to say is, even if this doesn't bother you at a moral level, it should on a fiscal. Thanks.
Thank you. Looking to staff, do we have Jacob DeMonte-Finn? Okay, Jacob DeMonte-Finn, go ahead.
Hi, I'd like to echo what the last speaker said. My name is Jacob DeMonte-Finn. I live in Southwest Olympia, and I'm a part of the
Staff are working hard on trying to get the tech issue figured out. I think many of us know what it's like when there's a snafu and you're the one in charge. And so if we could give them a little grace and have some patience through this, and hopefully Jacob will have hung on and we can hear from Jacob.
Stacy, do you have?
It's unknown right now how long it's going to take us to get our Zoom connection back. So
Okay.
We'll keep working on it.
Okay. If you could let us know when you get him back, and we can proceed. We will, I believe that was our last speaker.
Yes.
So we can start with council responses, and if they join by then, just let us know.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, back to you, Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, so we do have a second portion of public comment, typically at the back half of our agenda. So if you are still on and you can still hear me, we can return to public comment towards the end of our agenda at the back end of business to take your public comment if you wish to do so. And you can also email your comments to us. Thank you for that reminder, Mayor Pro Tem. We actually have been having problems with Zoom, so you may have seen our Assistant City Manager coming up here passing me little sticky notes saying that Zoom is down, Zoom is back up, and so now it finally looks like it's given out. So we will try to get them back, but thank you. Are there any comments from the dais? Yes, Councilmember Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to acknowledge two groups regarding the public comments. I'd like to thank the South Capitol neighborhood folks, Sue, Morgan, Eric, and I think there was a fourth there that I didn't catch the name of. Yeah, I had the opportunity to meet with John, the president of the South Capitol Neighborhood Association, in the last 10 days or so. And we talked more about the issues around the Capitol and whatnot, had a robust conversation, and I just want to acknowledge all of those issues. I'm familiar with many of them, and I hope to be engaged personally in moving the ball forward on those. None of you spoke to those issues, but I just wanted to acknowledge them. I also want to thank all of the members who came on behalf of CC and the trans community and those advocating for housing. This is, I think, the biggest challenge we face. Councilman Vanderpool is our representative on the Regional Housing Authority Council. I am the alternate, and this work is critical. We need more shelters. We need more tiny home villages. We need more low-income apartments. The struggle that we face in moving these projects forward is substantial, but I assure you there are people on this council that are working on those issues and doing so earnestly and in good faith. And I hear you and thank you for coming, and just want to thank you for for sharing your thoughts and ideas today.
Thank you. Councilmember Vanderpool.
Cece, you are my neighbor. We live in the same neighborhood. I see you quite often. I am upset about what is going on. Every time someone comes to us and brings something that is hard to hear and hard to understand, I reach out to them and say, hey, let's meet up, let's talk about this. As Councilmember Barrett mentioned, I'm on the Regional Housing Council. We deal with very limited funding due to cuts from the federal government and limited funding from the state, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't be reaching out and talking with you and hearing your experiences as we guide through that process. Okay, I'll talk to Clark when he's back from his vacation. That said, there are new system. There are examples in the past where after we passed the sanctuary city, where folks in the community said, "What else can we do?" This is where the family structures policy came from. This is where even the idea of having a trans sanctuary city came from, was folks coming to us and commenting and us meeting with them. So I'm reaching. Sorry, this new system is driving me crazy. I can sometimes hear myself and sometimes I can't. Okay. Anywho, any folks that are here today, I will, after we're done public comment, I'm going to give you my business card, and I'd like to meet with you folks if you're willing, and we can talk through what we can do as a city to meet with you and meet the needs of the community, because the challenge of housing doesn't end until everyone is housed. I see where you're I see the points you're making around the fact that we don't have any alternatives to the market housing, and that is apparent in the community and apparent in this country. So I want to acknowledge hearing that and hearing you. Yes, after I'm done here, I will run down there and give you my card, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments from the dais? Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Yeah, it's not quite fully flushed. I just, I feel really moved by the amount of people that have come out here to support CC and. I'm sure it is. You should be able to advocate for yourself, and it is so it's not as if you come alone, we're not listening, but to see so many people come and to lift you up and to advocate for you, I think that's really impressive reach. And it certainly got me thinking. Sam, I remember you from last time. I think we all do. I hear, folks had different presentations about this, about treatment of the unhoused community, about how are we doing more for our sanctuary city status, and really like protecting and being in community with trans community members. And so it makes sense to me that some presentations are a little louder and a little bit more upset than others, and I just want to say that I'm listening, and we're still had discussions amongst council members from the last time that members like Sam was here, and we heard two, I think, very compelling speeches. And so there's been a number of us following up and doing one-on-one meetings. I think we're actually still coordinating a small group meeting with the organization that accepted the proclamation that night. Thank you, Queer Feared. And in a moment, the mayor will ask staff to meet with you all in real time. So with that, I just wanted to say that, we don't get a lot of people that come in just to say thank you. And I think that's really nice for the neighborhood matching grants. And it's always a really lovely, not an obligation, but it's always lovely to hear from different recognized neighborhood associations that sometimes there's like some sort of interactive, some sort of like ceremony or activity to unveil a new mural or whatever it is that the neighborhood matching grant funds. And so that's always a great opportunity to go and see it happening in the community and see what those dollars did. So thank you so much for taking the time. And then, Gary's not here anymore. Well, Gary Myers, if they end up listening in again, I'm really intrigued by the permitting questions that you had referenced from the Sheets decision. So that's something that I'll be following up with my colleagues on and staff. Yeah, and then I don't have much to share about the Evergreen pool. For folks that are hoping to hear some responses on that, I think an aquatic center is really important. I don't dispute that at all. There's been many documents that point to, and community members that can say, hey, we've been saying we've been needing one for quite a while now. It sounds like the people that came in today know that we did follow up and have a meeting across some of our jurisdictions with that. That meeting was led by the county, is my understanding. And so we're at an interjurisdictional meeting later on this week. Actually, we're going to bring that topic up about what it looks like, not necessarily just the Evergreen pool, but what does it look like to have an aquatic center, and is that something that we can prioritize? And then as far as keeping the Evergreen pool, supporting keeping the Evergreen pool open till the end of the year, candidly, I don't know. I'd love to say that's something that we could support, but I'm not sure, and it's something I'll take back. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any additional comments from council? Well, Mayor Pro Tem, since you covered quite a bit, I'll just focus on my comments in regards to CC. So, first of all, I want to say I'm sorry that this is your experience that you're having. I don't want to pretend that anything I'm going to say is going to be any sort of consolation or solve anything for you at the moment, but I have spoken to our Chief of Police, Shelby Parker, and have asked her to speak with you just to get more of an understanding of what's going on with your experience and how we might work together. I understand that the trans community and that the houseless community in particular are vulnerable to a lot of different attacks from many different directions in our community. And I wish that I could tell you that declaring ourselves a sanctuary city means that there is no crime. You should be very suspicious of any elected official that tells you that declaring such a status would mean that you would be protected from any sort of harm in a community. No elected official can guarantee 100% crime-free community. That's not the world that we live in, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't strive for it. And so when we do proclamations and we do resolutions, thank you, they are intended to be statements of intentions, but they're also value statements. They're not just about what we are doing or what we did do, they're also about what we want to do. And they're not just performative actions. I know it may feel that way, but this council has housed hundreds of people in this community. We have. And I understand that it may not be fast enough. We feel that sense of urgency as well. But I understand, but we have our limitations as well. And thank God for that, because all elected officials should. So, you know, I really would like to get a better understanding of what's happening specifically with you. I appreciate all of the people that came out to advocate for you. But I can't say that the work that this body has done hasn't helped people in this community, because it has. And I'm sorry that that is your particular experience that you're having right now, but we are willing to do all that we can to address it. So, and I understand that you may not have trust or faith in that at all. And that's understandable. But I just ask for your patience and to extend more trust, if you're willing, to the city of Olympia to work with you.
10 years, been on the street.
I understand.
Many of those years I've been here constantly, I almost push myself into an early grave.
I'm sorry, Cece. So, Chief Parker, if you will, please meet with Cece, and we would appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, and I understand that there is, we do have our Zoom back up for our public commenters, so we will return to them in a moment, just one moment. I understand that there might be some fear or trepidation with the police, but when you talk about harassment and threats of violence, and things of that nature, it is the police department's job to respond to those issues. And so if you are feeling like your safety is at risk because of others, then it is certainly their job to assist you.
Whose job is it to stop the police from doing violence?
And thank you. I hear that there is concerns about holding our police department accountable. Our police department, we do have a civilian oversight board, and we also have a police auditor. And please don't have it back and forth. I am trying to explain our process. We do have oversight over our police, but that does not necessarily mean that certain policies and procedures won't be enforced. For example, there are rules about approaching a police officer, right? When they are engaging in a situation, it is for the safety of the officer, but it's also for your safety, right? That you are not in the way. And so there are protocols for those sorts of things. And so I just ask that we all get a better understanding of this. The city is here to serve you. And I know that that may not always feel like it 100% of the time, but that's what every single person up here on this dais expects of the people who work for the city of Olympia, including ourselves. So, Mayor Pro Tem, I see your hand.
Yeah, if I may, Mayor, I am hopeful that Jacob is our last public commenter is still with us, but I would just invite, I see the chief and then also Assistant City Manager Stacey Ray, so both of them to speak with Cece and her supporters, if you're willing to, outside in the lobby. If you're willing to, yes. They're right back there. What? Oh, excuse me. You can stay for that as well. Just trying to be. I'm acting, Sam. I'm acting. So the yes is looking at staff. Is Jacob's on? Oh, wonderful. Okay, we'll call Jacob DeMonte Finn. After which, they'll still be ready to have a conversation with you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much for your patience.
Absolutely. Yeah, my name is Jacob DeMonte Finn. I live in Southwest Olympia, and I'm a part of the Southwest Olympia Neighborhood Association, as is Cece. Um, she's a delight to have as part of the community, and I just want to echo what you've heard from a lot of us, which is that I'm extremely disappointed. Disappointed doesn't do it justice. I'm incensed that city resources are being used to make Cece's life harder at the drop of a phone call made by, you know, someone who has some sort of weird axe to grind. Someone who, in this case, throws eggs at people. I'd like to see the city and its resources supporting Cece and supporting people like Cece, and not the homophobe that throws eggs at people. And I know there's a lot of us that feel this way. I know a lot of them are there right now. I would like to, cede the rest of my time to those that are there, and I hope that you listen to them and take what they have to say seriously. Um, it's most of us that feel this way.
Thank you, Jacob, and thank you again for your patience. With that, I'll turn it over to the mayor, and again, the chief and assistant city manager are ready to chat with you should you choose to do so. Thank you for coming in.
Okay. Thank you all very much, and thank you, Chief Parker. So at this time, we are going to continue with the remainder of our business with adoption of the consent calendar. So is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the consent calendar. I do just want to quickly give a mention to item 4G on our agenda, which is the approval of a resolution authorizing the agreement with Mark Shabmeyer for hiring examiner services. So you'll notice that Mark has been our hearing examiner for some time now, and so this process is to reinstate him once again, reappoint him to the position of hearing examiner. And we'll also be recommending to have Attorney Phil Albrechts as the city's hearing examiner pro tem, which we haven't had in the past. But this has become a necessary development as we have talked about having essentially a backup for the hearing examiner in the event that we need to have the pro tem step up. And so just wanted to give that a little mention before we adopt tonight's consent calendar. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting tonight's consent calendar as published signify by saying aye.
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 Consent calendar.
Microphone, Mayor. Microphone.
I'm sorry. Thank you. All right. So I'd like to turn our attention to item 6A, which is the approval of the parking and business improvement area evaluation recommendations. And we have Jenica Machado, who is our economic development director, as well as Brian Scott, who is our founding partner for Uncommon Bridges, who will be presenting tonight. Hi, Jenica.
Hello, good evening.
Jenica, I'm not sure if your mic is on. Is it on? Look for the red light. There should be a red light. We have a new system.
Is this working?
Yep, and we're all learning it. So
Sorry about that. Jenica Machado, Economic Development Director. Before I hand this over to Brian Scott with Uncommon Bridges, I'd like to take a bit to provide background and frame today's discussion. Then after Brian presents, I'll come back up with a few additional notes before questions. So this presentation is the result of a process that began in 2024, when both the PBIA Advisory Board and City Council identified the need for a comprehensive evaluation of the PBIA. At that time, there were a number of concerns about PBIA's long-term sustainability, including the equity of the assessment structure, the effectiveness of current programs, and administrative complexity. The advisory board did consider dissolution as a potential option. However, both the board and council agreed that a more thorough evaluation was needed before making any decisions. In late 2025, the city initiated this evaluation and engaged Uncommon Bridges to assess the current condition of the PBIA and to identify potential paths forward based on best practices from comparable downtowns. Brian will provide an overview with national context and examples. He'll walk through the final findings and recommendations from that work. Before I hand it over to Brian, I want to briefly clarify the decision before you today. We're asking whether to move forward to phase 2 of this project. Phase 2 would include additional stakeholder engagement and development of a detailed proposal. We are not asking you to approve any changes to the PBIA at this time. If we proceed, we will return at the end of phase 2 with a proposal for your consideration. With that, I'll turn it over to Brian and he'll walk through more details and an overview of what phase 2 would look like. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Brian Scott, the founding partner of Uncommon Bridges. I'm pleased to be here with you this evening to share our findings. Is this? Oh, there we go. Okay. Got it. Here with our findings for the thing, I want to give a quick introduction to our firm, give some background on Olympia's Parking and Business Improvement Program, talk about best practices with similar programs around the region and around the country, followed by our findings, recommendations, and a roadmap to implementing them should you do so. I'm Brian Scott, founding partner with Uncommon Bridges. Ashley Day is a project associate who helped us with a lot of the community engagement throughout the process. Uncommon Bridges is a firm that I founded 18 years ago. We envision vibrant, just, and thriving communities. Our work is in consensus leadership, inclusive process, impactful organizations, and meaningful places. I've been working in the place management industry, which is what the parking and business improvement area has fallen into since the 1980s. I worked statewide in Oregon for a long time. The firm works all over the country. So by now we've worked in many, many, many cities across the Pacific Northwest and in 19 states across the country on similar subjects. Examples of places where we've helped with these programs include the Tacoma Business Improvement Area, the Everett Business Improvement Area, in Seattle, the Metropolitan Improvement District, which is the biggest one in the state, as well as the Chinatown International District and all of the other 11 districts in Seattle. As background, Olympia created its parking and business improvement area in 2005 when 60% of downtown businesses signed a petition in support. There were about 520 businesses in downtown Olympia at that time. Its budget has been fairly consistently about $120,000 a year since that time, even though there's been quite a lot of inflation since 2005. The budget has stayed relatively flat. The assessments are calculated on businesses based on their number of employees with no provision to keep up with inflation. The formula that calculates what people pay into this is on the screen at the moment per your ordinance. There are 3 different zones in the district. You pay based on whether you're a large business, a medium business, or a small business, and which zone you're in, whether you're restaurant and retail, professional services, financial institutions, with separate calculations for lodging or apartments and personal care services. the way the city does these assessments. There are 9 different categories you can see in that list on the right, or I guess there's 10, with what the rates are. Most of the ratepayers, like 2/3 of the ratepayers, are in the P1 or P2 that pay $150 or $200 per year for these services. All that together collected about $113,000 in 2024, the last time you collected this assessment. The current status, you collected just over $110,000 in 2024. Because you were unsure what to do, there was controversy about it, you chose to pause the assessments and collect $0 in 2025 and 2026, waiting for the results of this evaluation. Our scope of work was to do a background review. I've shared the high points of that just now, to engage stakeholders in downtown Olympia and compare it to regional best practices. Our deliverables were an evaluation, recommendations, and implementation. That's what I'm sharing today. Picture there of a tour in the rain. I got to say about this project, I've been to Olympia 4 times. It's rained every single time. I've gotten really wet doing this project. I've been in this business since its inception in the 1980s. Where this stuff came from was in the 1950s. Downtowns were in a terrible shape after the Second World War because of the GI Bill and the interstate highway projects launching the suburbs. At the same time, urban renewal and redlining were hurting the cities. By the 1960s, downtowns were beginning to organize to try and fight back. They started doing some public area management to make downtowns better in the 1970s. By the 1980s and 1990s, they realized they needed sustainable funding to keep doing that and created assessment districts, mostly aimed at clean and safe kind of activities. By the 2000s, neighborhood districts were also involved. There was lots more programming and social services being delivered through these programs. Today, there are thousands of place management districts across the country and throughout the world. According to the International Downtown Association, which is where these districts get together to talk to each other and work about best practices, there are now more than 4,000 of these organizations globally, with 2,500 in North America, employing 100,000 people and paying $3 billion in wages. The average district nationally is about $1.2 million. They provide services to the district to help businesses thrive and make the district a great place for workers, residents, and visitors. In Washington, there are at least 25 of these. There's not a clear record. They have budgets that range from $50,000 a year up to over $20 million a year. There are 11 of them in Seattle, 2 in Spokane, Yakima, Richmond, and Everett, and then there are another dozen or so cities that have one of these districts, including Olympia. What is this thing, this parking and business improvement area, which might be the worst title for something that ever happened, because they usually don't have anything to do with parking, although they could. They have many names in many different places. There are BIDs and BIAs and PBIAs and EIDs and ESDs and PIDs and EEDs, depending on what state you're in, what city you're in. In every case, they're a funding mechanism for local place management. That is managing a place that's owned by many people, public and private. They are enacted by the city council. They're managed right in the neighborhood where they serve. The assessments are on properties and or businesses. In Olympia, it's businesses. The assessments are based on a local preference. Could be square footage, value, sales, number of employees, like in Olympia. What they use the money for is something in their mutual best interest, but typically it's cleaning, safety, marketing and promotions, business management, professional management, or coordination. This matrix we've done for some of our clients who are trying to form districts about what do these things do? Nobody in the country does everything that's on this slide, but somebody in the country does every single thing that's on this slide, from marketing, promotion, and events, economic development, beautification, parks and public spaces, clean and safe, homeless services, transportation. It's amazing how many different things are being done through these programs where folks wanted to pool their resources to do something collectively for their common good. 2 examples. One is downtown Everett, sort of on a similar scale to Olympia. It was created in 1990. It's been renewed every 5 years since then, most recently just before the end of 2025. Their budget's about $1.2 million. The amount of that is an assessment is just over $600,000. They do that on properties based on a calculation using the square footage of the land and the total market value of the property. At the same time, the city and the county both put an assessment in there, a contribution to the program that's proportionate to the contribution they have. They also raise Main Street tax credits like the Downtown Olympia Alliance does here. They serve 54 blocks, and they do professional management, cleaning and beautification, marketing and events, business development, and they manage a city-owned parking garage. West Seattle Junction, which is in West Seattle, is a district founded in 1987. They have a budget of $1.3 million, about half of that coming from their assessment. They assess businesses or tenants just like you do, so it's similar in that way. They have 3 zones. What your assessment is based on your gross sales, which is a dicey way to do it because it's self-reported by the people that are making the payments, most of whom probably tell the truth, but presumably some don't. Their activities are clean and safe, professional management, marketing events, repairs and maintenance, business support, and they do parking management on some community-serving parking lots. Just 2 examples. If you compare your district to those 2 districts, the value of the real estate in downtown Olympia, according to the Thurston County assessors, about $800 million. It's $1.3 billion in Everett, $600 million in West Seattle Junction. So Everett's half again as big. West Seattle Junction's about 3/4 as valuable. Total land area, 7.5 million square feet in Olympia, 4.5 in Everett, 1.7 in West Seattle, so much less land area in those areas. Building area, 4.3 million in Olympia, 4.5 and 2.5 in the other 2, 1.5 times as big and about 60% in West Seattle Junction. Value per square foot, 104 in Olympia, 274 in Everett, 384 in West Seattle. So those are quite a bit more valuable per square foot. The assessment collected for the services provided in Olympia is $114,000, $510,000 in Everett, $570,000 in West Seattle Junction. So 4 and 5 times as much as you're collecting here. Not a perfect thing. There's no reason that says you have to do it like they do it, but you're collecting a lot less money than those 2 examples, just for perspective. Why do people create these things? What I hear, doing this a long time, they want to increase activity, vitality, occupancy rates, cleanliness, public safety. They want to improve the district's image. They want to do advocacy for their district. But probably at the bottom line, they want to make sure everyone pays their fair share, because when you do these things voluntarily, some people pay and some people don't, and that drives the ones that pay nuts. That's basically why these things happen. How do you create one of these districts? You start out with an organizational assessment and figuring out the organization that's going to run it. You do an iterative process with a core group of key stakeholders who they figure out the service area and the goals, the work plan and budget, the assessment mechanism. They build support, working with the city, the community and ratepayers, getting their messaging right, doing lots and lots of one-on-one contacts, and then some general meetings. They draft an ordinance, they document support, and then they have a formal city process through the city council. Generally, that's how they all work. This is an important illustration that's a little obscure, but it relates to your program. The national best practice for these, there are 3 entities that run one of these things. In the middle is the city council and the city administration, which is responsible for the authority to create the thing, the collection of the assessments, providing financial accountability and audit, and operating standards. We couldn't do this without the city council. Then there's the ratepayers. They're the ones that are paying for it, which might or might not include the city and the county. And then there's a ratepayer board made up of ratepayers who are making sure they're getting for their money what they're paying for. Their job is to approve and monitor the budget. They identify program priorities and monitor performance. And then there's the people doing the work. the program manager that often has an operating board through a separate entity, and they're the ones that do the work. They're closest to the people on the street. They have active programs using district funds. They're doing the district operations, clean, safe, marketing, activation, whatever it said in the ordinance. That's pretty much the same everywhere. But then they often have other contract funds that they might have memoranda of understanding with government entities or people outside the district. They might provide some on-call services. And then they often have other sources of funding like dues or donations, which they might use for policy and public affairs kind of activities. The nice thing about having that flexibility in multiple sources of funds is if it doesn't fit right in your ordinance activity, they can still do those things using other monies for those things. This is settled out as the most common methodology nationally. They're not all like that, but that's a good thing. It's not how yours is organized currently. So moving to our findings. Your structure does not align with national best practices. It's easy to understand how you got there. Lots of the programs that were set up in the 90s, the early 2000s are similar to yours. Most have changed their structure by now. The original structure is easy to understand in that context, but the assessment rates have not changed since 2005. That's a no-brainer that that's a problem. There's been a lot of inflation. It doesn't raise enough money to justify the collection. $114,000 isn't worth all the trouble you're going to get that much money. A tenant-based district like yours is difficult to administer. This is for a pretty simple reason. There's no list. Properties, the county assessor collects for everybody, and there's a clear list. There's not such a list of tenants. You made a recent attempt in Olympia to pass one of these things a couple of years ago. It was unsuccessful, and it's left people discouraged about that. Your rates, if you just adjusted the rates for inflation, instead of $113,000 or $14,000, you collect $200,000. So just right there, you're not keeping up with inflation. Perceptions, the PBIA, its services may not align with ratepayer priorities. When we talked to people, they said they wanted clean and safe. There were a lot of marketing and beautification things that were authorized with the limited funds that were there. $114,000 isn't enough to pay for much clean and safe. Public perception of the PBIA is quite poor, I think, for all the reasons that I've just said. At the same time, the public perceptions of the Olympia Downtown Alliance is quite strong. We heard really positive things about what they've been doing, so that was really a positive sign. The efficiencies. The PBIA board meets more often than is needed to perform its primary function of overseeing the PBIA budget and performance. They're getting together once a month at City Hall, staffed by the city staff, and it's not cost effective, and they're doing all that to administer $114,000. Summarizing all that into strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats: internal strengths, robust business base, solid history of services in Olympia, city commitment to downtown, a passionate PBIA board, reputation of strong performance by the ODA. Weaknesses, you got a thin business mix and economic base downtown, persistent issues with street disorder, not enough money to get much done, inefficient staffing, out-of-date assessment model, and no provision to keep up with inflation. Opportunities would be to create a property-based district, more revenue, a cost-effective management and operations, and a partnership with the ODA. Threats, erosion of credibility, ratepayer revolt, termination of the PBIA, and stagnation of downtown. Moving to the recommendations. You need stable place management and funding. These services are used so many places. This is really valuable to what can happen. Ideally, that would be through a property-based district, but since that recent attempt was here and it's fresh on people's minds, it may be too much, may not be the time to launch such an effort, but that should be the goal. It's a better model for making this work efficiently. But in the meantime, substantially increase PBIA assessments and budgets and reconfigure PBIA administration and services for cost efficiency and effectiveness. A little more detail on those two things. increasing rates and budgets, adjust antiquated rates for inflation. That's pretty obvious. Residential assessments. There wasn't much residential in the district when it got created. There's quite a bit now. The rates are ridiculously low. They should be raised to be more equitable with other ratepayers. A peer equivalent budget, if you just compare it to Everett and West Seattle, would be something like $500,000 a year. So that doesn't mean you have to do that, but if you were just comparing it to your neighbors, that'd be more on par with what it might be. And use an easier metric to calculate assessments. Building square footage might be such a metric. Substantially increasing budgets, the easiest way to do that would be just to turn the meter on the formula you already have. If you were going to try and raise $500,000 using the same categories you have here, somebody paying $150 would have to pay $663. Somebody paying $750 would have to pay $3,315. That would get you there. The ratepayer mix would stay the same. That would be the simplest way to do it. I'm not sure it's the most equitable, but that'd be pretty easy. If you used a simpler metric, if you went to building square footage and you go to the Thurston County assessor and you can look up what the building square footage on those buildings, that does not give you how much square footage do the tenants inside the building have. So you're going to still have to do that as a field survey and negotiation with the tenants to try and get it figured out. If you took $500,000 and divided it by the 4.3 million building square feet that the Thurston County assessor says are in that line, it'd take 12 cents a building square foot to do that. Some of that square footage is hallways and elevators and other things that aren't going to be assessed. So probably you'd be looking for 15 to 20 cents a square foot to do that. And that would be, I think, a simpler metric. But doing all of that makes this assumption that there's agreement among the majority of ratepayers that a robust portfolio of services is something they want to invest in. I don't have proof of that. We talked to everybody that wanted to talk to us. We tried hard to talk to who we thought would be the key folks. And we made a good dent, but we did not get there to the finish line. This phase 2 of this that Jenica mentioned would be doing more of that work. So confirming that would require iterative consensus building among the ratepayers. Reconfiguring PBIA administration and services. This is just as important as having more money as how do you actually deploy it. I think you need a ratepayer advisory board and a program manager or operating entity. I think having the city operate this program as you've been done is not cost effective, and it's deploying city employees on something that's probably not your highest priority. Streamline the PBIA administration. I think the board could go to quarterly meetings plus an annual meeting would be enough to oversee even the $500,000 of funds. They should use clear performance metrics with consistent tracking and reporting of services outcomes and the health of downtown so everybody knows what they're getting for their money. And then streamlining services. I would transfer day-to-day operations to a nonprofit program manager, maybe the Olympia Downtown Alliance if they agreed to take that on. That would be well positioned and aligned with national best practices. And then the program manager can also manage the ratepayer advisory board. That frees up the time of City of Olympia employees, make the whole program closer to the people that are paying the bill and have the biggest stake in it. So those are my recommendations, or our recommendations. And how would you get there? So a roadmap, this is my last slide. The roadmap would be presentation and report. That's what's happening right now. Then the city, the PBIA board, and ODA all need to agree that they want to do this. You don't have to do this. You could just abandon the program. I don't recommend just doing what you've been doing. I think it's frustrating everybody. Then to do it, you form a leadership group and build consensus on how it's going to work. And so forming that group might take you a month. And And then you need to build revenue and services budgets. You need to do a robust, iterative process with ratepayers about what do they want, what are they willing to pay for it, are these the right boundaries, how do those things work? That'll take 3 to 6 months, might take longer, that can take much longer. But it's basically building the support of the people that are going to be paying for it. Because when you get to the point of you were going to create an ordinance, you'd really rather have most of the people in the room saying, hey, we really want this, as opposed to, no, don't do this. So that takes a process of building that support. If the ODA is going to be the program manager, they need to build an operations plan that'll explain how they're going to be able to deliver those services for the budget that they have. And then once you've got all that sort of built, then you want to have some community open houses to make sure everybody knows what's going on, that those that haven't already been engaged. And then ultimately you'd want the ODA and PBIA to both approve this plan works for them, and then you have a council process of public hearings to go through creating the process, at which point you could launch the PBIA, the new one, which would have the city doing the assessment and collection and oversight, and the services being provided by the program manager and overseen by the new board. That's my spiel. I'd be glad to answer any questions. Oh, yeah, Janica wanted.
Just a quick wrap up. Thank you, Brian. So a few additional comments. The recommendations presented tonight are intended to provide a framework based on best practices, not a final ready to implement model. As mentioned previously, moving forward would require the phase 2 roadmap that Brian just went through. And just to note, the PBI Advisory Board reviewed these recommendations at their March 4th meeting and unanimously voted to recommend to council to support moving to phase 2. This also went to CLIPS on March 5th, who provided a recommendation to proceed with phase 2 as well. The PBA Advisory Board, their recommendation did include a request to share phase 2 costs with the city. I roughly estimate that the full project may cost about $50,000. We do have funds identified through the Economic Development Reserve Fund to cover this shared approach. Now, I'm done. We can take any questions.
Thank you, Jenica, and thank you, Brian. I really appreciate your candor. All right, are there any questions or comments from the council? Councilmember Madrone.
Yeah, I can just speak on behalf of CLIPS, the Community Livability and Public Safety Committee. This is actually in process when I came onto the committee, but just wanted to share that, as it was stated earlier, we kind of, we can't keep doing what we're doing. We need to either move on to figure out what the next phase of this looks like, or we need to decide that having a PBIA is not a priority for us. And so I had a lot of unanswered questions when we got to this point in the process, but realized that they would all get answered in phase 2. But we had some really good discussions on CLIPS and unanimously recommended that this move on to the next phase with the cost sharing arrangement that Jenica mentioned.
Thank you, Chair Madrone. Yes, Councilmember Barrett.
I just had a question for staff. Who administrates this program? Is it administered by the city, or is it administered externally?
The city, and so we collect the funds, and then I've been staffing it and the facilitator of the advisory board.
So we send out a billing to all of the businesses in downtown, asking, communicating their assessment, and, and they just...
The city collects the assessment from all the eligible businesses within the PBIA zones.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Additional questions? Councilmember Vanderpool.
Yeah, I have some questions about, what else this could be used on. I'm curious. Right? I saw the very large list, and of course, phase 2 is when we start to answer some more of those details. But there are certain things that downtowns will do across the country, like a nightmare and other things that help with nightlife and help with, because I heard clean and safe. And so to me, that's a combination of having those services at night, but also considering the affordability of downtown, trying to get more folks living downtown, creating more walkability, right? I'd be curious to see what some districts, from your examples, from your research that you run into, that have to help fill in some of that affordability potentially, right? Because, you know, rents go up all the time, not just for people living downtown, but people who have a business downtown. And so I'm very curious, do programs like this ever help with some stuff like that?
It is very common for programs to do everything they can think of to help businesses have more revenue, you know, to make more sales, to have more customers, get more people downtown. That's very common, which will make those businesses more able to pay their rent. And as the district gets more vital, typically rents are probably going to go up because it's going to be a more, a desirable place to be, but usually it's more affordable at the same time. The impact on residential rates tends to be basically non-existent. The amount that residences pay into these programs is minuscule compared to whatever they're paying for rent, and again, it's probably going to make the district more of a desirable place to live, which probably won't make it a cheaper place to live. The things that get done to subsidize rents are generally done by government entities and philanthropic organizations, which very often these programs are supportive of and have people on the boards of and things like that. But I can't think of programs where they're actually providing a subsidy for residential rates. Some of them do homeless services like outreach and drop-in centers and things like that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Green.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I've gotten to see, we've gotten to talk through this twice at Community Livability Public Safety. I fully endorse everything in phase 2, but I'm wondering, you have referenced several times the Olympia Downtown Alliance, fantastic organization. There is someone here from there from the ODA tonight. Is it okay if I ask Desiree a couple of questions? Do you mind if? Hello, ODA.
Hi.
Thank you for being here.
Evening. Pleasure.
Your organization is obviously in close touch with a lot of downtown businesses, and I suspect some of the ones that maybe did not want to talk about the PBIA or did not want to talk to the city. As you hear these recommendations and think about a potential budget of like a $500,000 and think about what businesses downtown look to you for or feel like they're not getting between the PBIA and you, I mean, I guess just where does this sit with you, and do you feel like a model like this, particularly with the structure of the three bodies or three entities, I mean, do you feel like that would meet existing needs that a lot of businesses are experiencing, or I guess just what's your impressions of this?
Sure, great question. So certainly the Olympia Downtown Alliance provides services to our downtown stakeholders in the clean and safe realm, right? So when I see, opportunities like this that say being able to assess fees at a higher rate to be able to then approach those clean and safe, issues or priorities that the ratepayers, because that's who it would come from, the ratepayers with council's approval, having that money allocated for those initiatives allows organizations like mine to not allocate as much of our funds towards those initiatives. So it kind of frees us up to be able to do more to help support businesses, right? Having this money that's there, that's available, it's there for clean and safe, it's there to help support small businesses in ways that are outlined by the advisory committee, by ratepayers, and by council. Again, frees us up and kind of lets us kind of, venture on and do more for small businesses, knowing that there's clean and safe monies available just for those initiatives.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good.
Thank you, Desiree. Good to see you. For the record, that's Desiree Freeland, who is the Executive Director of the Olympia Downtown Alliance. All right, are there any additional questions or comments? I do have a question, maybe for Brian, I'm not sure. But I'm curious, you had said, obviously, with the unsuccessful attempt with our downtown improvement district, that obviously, there's not an interest at the moment. And there's not an appetite for folks here in our community at this time. But in your experience, is there a certain window of time? Have you seen other communities make this attempt and succeed? Can you paint a picture for us or a little background?
Yeah. I mean, I've helped create a few dozen of these. Of various sizes, quite a few in the scale that I was talking about. In my experience, it takes, we're already in it here, so I don't know where the starting line is, but it takes a year, or so, sometimes a little longer than that, depending on local politics. And in my experience, if we get as far as going to the petitions, I've never not succeeded if we got that far. I've had some that we kind of got into it a little bit and they were just kind of so disorganized, or there was enough internal bickering or whatever that we didn't really get started. So I've seen it to be pretty successful, and I am adamant that a property-based district based on publicly available data is more equitable and way more efficient than the way you're doing it. That's what I would recommend that you do. My experience in the last few months in Olympia, talking to folks at the Downtown Alliance and ratepayers, is that frustrating failure a few years ago is fresh enough on everybody's mind that I don't sense a lot of enthusiasm for it here right now. But that still would be I still think that would be the better solution. But I heard them, and so I feel like I'd be tone deaf if I said that's what you should do right now.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, I see Desiree is in the back raising her hand, so feel free to approach if you have something to add.
I do. Thank you. I appreciate you giving me the time. To Brian's point, the Olympia Downtown Alliance did a couple of years ago attempt to form a DID. We were not successful by single-digit percentages. So I just want to be clear that the appetite for property owners was nearly there. Nearly doesn't make it happen, but we were really close. And I think the hesitation from my organization is really from capacity standpoint. I think that our stakeholders deserve an opportunity to see what a property-based assessment can do for them, and that will kind of help get us over that, those last percentages to be successful in another iteration of that, potentially in a couple of years down the road. Did I promise?
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. And thank you, Brian. I appreciate your partnership with us. I'm obviously going to support moving forward to phase 2. I think I do think it's important to invest in a business improvement area, especially now for our downtown. There's many competing priorities, not enough funding to go around, but I appreciate the efforts to attempt to get us to a better place where we're better positioned to address some of our critical needs that we have in downtown. So thank you. All right, so any additional questions or comments? Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to make the motion?
I would. All right. I'd move to approve the evaluation recommendations and proceed with the roadmap implementation plan, or phase 2.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, so that takes us to our final business item for tonight, which is item 6B on our agenda, and is the approval of the 2026 Neighborhood Matching Grant Allocation. And we have Brittany Gillia, who is the Associate Planner, who is presenting tonight. Hi, Brittany.
Hello, good evening. Good evening to Mr. Mayor and the City Council. For the record, my name is Brittany Gillia, Associate Planner with Community Planning and Economic Development, and I'm here before you today to present the 2026 Neighborhood Matching Grant Award Allocation Recommendations. So to start the program, or start the presentation, I'll go over a brief overview of the program. Neighborhood matching grants have been providing funds to Olympia neighborhoods for over 25 years. The grants typically range up to $5,000 per neighborhood, and it is a reimbursement-based matching grant. This means that in order to get paid, an applicant will need to have made their purchases in alignment with the approved project scope and to have receipts that show that the purchase was made. Applicants need to provide a matching component to demonstrate that they're invested in their projects. So the 50% match, it means that half of the value of the project must be provided by the applicant. So it's kind of a one-to-one ratio. If the applicant is awarded $1,000 from this program, then they need to show that they've contributed at least $1,000 in value from their own volunteer efforts or donated cash and materials for a total project value of at least $2,000. And for this year, the program budget is $33,000. So typically, this grant program is open to recognized neighborhood associations, or RNAs, I'll be referring to them that way moving forward, across the city and our urban growth areas. You can see up on the map that the areas in purple are represented by an RNA, and you might notice that the slide says there are 26 active RNAs this year, but the numbers on the map go up to 35. This program requires an annual registration to confirm that the contact information that we have is correct. And so sometimes not every RNA will choose to renew or be active for a year. But in order to establish itself as an RNA, a neighborhood needs to have bylaws, a board, elected officials, and a physical boundary. And so you can kind of see an overview of what areas have coverage. Okay, let's take a look at last year's projects and statistics. So in the 2025 Neighborhood Matching Grant Cycle, there are a variety of project categories ranging from block parties to community gardening, landscaping, site cleanups, outreach, walking path improvements. It was really great. Around $32,500 are approved to go towards 10 RNAs, and of those 10, 4 applicants were able to use their full award. Only 1 applicant was not able to complete their proposed projects. And actually, a lot of neighborhoods mentioned to me that they were trying to underspend to save money, to be conscious of budgets. So the total reimbursed versus the total awarded should be evaluated slightly different than the success rate of other kind of grants. So these $25,000 that were utilized in combination with the volunteer hours that add up to the rate of $84,712, and all of that sweat equity and the donations that went into the projects leveraged just over $160,000 of value to the city to promote environmental stewardship, neighborhood beautification, and community connections. While we were going through last year's grant cycle, there were a few internal process change, a few requests and recommendations that came up, and we viewed these as opportunity points to refresh the program. And so there were 4 main categories that we can kind of distill the various points into: equitable access of funds, transparency in the administrative process, new financial requirements, and having the program reflect the needs of neighborhoods. So I'll run through these briefly. For equitable access, as recognized in the past, only RNAs were able to apply in 2025, which leaves gaps in coverage that have access to funds. Each RNA also operates differently, so not just on the applicant level, but on the project level. They have different approaches to engagement and outreach, and they may have different levels of neighbor participation and inclusion just based on the framework that they're working with. For transparency, the administrative processing was unclear to a few applicants, which led to questions on decision-making related to eligibility, program goals, decision-making, financial requirements. Midway through the grant cycle, financial processing requirements became required for RNAs. Additionally, some RNAs operate at varying scales of organization. Being an RNA with the city does not require 501c3 status or that the neighborhood necessarily collects dues. Sometimes this means that an RNA might have more informal ways of managing their finances. And then lastly, neighborhood needs. There were a few neighborhoods that were requesting the ability to spend funds on a yearly cycle. And so this grant is administratively processed in the first quarter of the year, and that is also allocated to a fraction of a full-time employee. So it wasn't feasible in 2025 to extend the program. And lastly, the program goals and interests expressed by neighborhoods as part of last year's application didn't align with the program goals at that time. And so through collaboration with neighborhoods, in fact, I see folks in the room that have helped be part of this process, thank you, and collaboration with other staff members on my department and also interdepartmental coordination, we've had conversations with leadership and took these opportunity points and turned them into changes for the 2026 cycle. And so same main categories as the last slide. It's not an exhaustive list. There were other changes that have been implemented, and there are also a few that are operating at a pilot capacity, so we see how they do this year, and we can learn more about how they operate and correct as needed. So for equitable access, this year I'm excited that we've opened eligibility to informal neighborhood groups. So these are groups that can apply for smaller grant amounts, so up to $600, and the requirements that we have set out would be that there are at least 4 residents who are connected by a defined geographic area that is not already covered by an RNA. And the goal for these types of applications would be to fund small, quick-win projects that either align with project goals or program goals or help the group make their way into becoming more incorporated as an RNA. Additionally, the grant goals and review rubric and scoring system were updated to provide transparency and framework that encourage applicants to include more aspects of equity in their projects. So this year's program goals newly include neighborhood improvements that increase access to or reduce barriers around community resources, projects that foster belonging and inclusiveness. For transparency, we looked to our other grant programs offered by the city. So grant programs like Inspire Olympia and LTAC. We updated our scoring criteria and funding decision-making process and included that into the program materials up front. And we also created new materials for that packet to provide clarity on things like eligible expenses and definitions for what would be allowable as part of the program. And so we're working on some other changes like digitizing the process so it's not PDFs that get printed and written on and rescanned. Like, we want to have it all digital. And then next we've got the financial requirements. So when we learned there were new processing requirements coming up, we spent time working with the finance team and finance leadership to understand how we can kind of coordinate the program and the requirements so that applicants are set up for success as part of their application. So thank you to that team as well. We created some basic materials and relayed them to the Council of Neighborhood Associations, or CNA, so they were able to distribute those resources to RNAs. And then we also hosted a workshop to invite folks in if they had questions with understanding how to apply for an employer identification number, or EIN, which is one of our requirements. We did not offer financial advice, but we at least tried to help them with some resources. The scoring criteria also does include a small nudge toward our RNA financial health by offering bonus points for groups that have shown that they've got a bank account for their neighborhood. With an EIN, you can open a bank account, and so I'm hoping that in the future, other groups will kind of take steps forward with this starting base. And then lastly, neighborhood needs. As part of the interdepartmental coordination and planning, we're testing another pilot element of the program. So now there are 2 timeline options available for folks. Track A, which is similar to the standard timeline, and Track B, which offers a window up to the contract signature until the following April, so there's that full year of funding. And then lastly, we coordinated and collaborated with neighborhood representatives to learn more about how programs can serve their current needs and issues. So we had a lot of engagement. We launched surveys and hosted discussions, coordinated with representatives, and just really tried to inform the types of work that they want to be doing, coordinated with staff to learn more about how we can support and provide framework for neighborhoods. And fortunately, we all had similar goals, so it was very easy to sort of mesh them together and form them into the program that you're seeing today. And so these updates are the efforts of engagement and outreach with neighborhood associations, local municipalities that offer similar programs, various staff members from different teams. So thank you very much to everyone who's sort of been part of this journey to reevaluate and provide some updates to the program. So we have some results already from these changes. Initially, there were 13 applications that came in, totaling around $42,000. After one project withdrew and one project was found ineligible, the grant review panel was tasked with reviewing 11 applications. So each had multiple projects in those applications, and the total request was $36,644. But these proposals are exciting because they show progress with the program updates. We had 2 informal groups apply and 3 other ones inquire separately about the funds. So I'm hoping that continues to grow for next year. And although one of these informal groups was deemed ineligible, the pilot program will just have to continue to see the interest, and we'll continue to provide outreach to let folks know that it's an option. Additionally, the projects, like the proposed projects, utilize the new categories, which was exciting. So you'll see things related to neighborhood preparedness, emergency management, mutual aid. There was also a noticeable increase in this application cycle's proposed volunteer hours, project values, and it's clear that neighborhoods are really excited to continue growing. In January, the neighborhoods put together a community forum on neighborhood priorities. Thank you to folks who were there to sort of support when some technical issues came up. And the priorities there, I believe, were meant to inform the types of proposals that neighborhoods were using in the grant applications, and it's showing. It's showing that there's a lot of effort in increasing and improving outreach from the CNA outwards to Olympia communities, and hopefully encouraging new folks to participate. And so this year, staff is recommending approval for 11 projects, with 9 projects at full funding and 2 at partial funding. And I'll have the specifics on the next slide for you to view. With approximately $33,000 of grant funds and effort from neighborhood volunteers, we're looking at a project return value of about almost $180,000. And so you can see here that there's a lot of really fun projects. I'll kind of make note of the one on top. That is the first informal neighborhood group. They'd like to do some little free libraries. They're asking for $300. I think it's really awesome to see that this program can do a small quick win improvement that will benefit a lot of neighborhoods in Olympia, or folks that are passing through this area. And in the case that all of the applicants spend their full award, there is a noted $97 overage that could be related, or that could become carryover for an administrative fee to the department, but it is a reimbursement-based grant, so it's not anticipated that it'll be going above that budgeted number. And so in closing, thank you very much. I know that neighborhoods are also very thankful and wanted to pass that along to you. Last year's projects were really impactful. I think folks really enjoyed being able to continue doing this work, and they're excited for next year.
Thank you, Brittany. Any questions or comments from council? Councilmember Green, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Thank you, Mayor Payne. Brittany, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to thank you and give you a huge gratitude for the changes that you made to the application process in response to some of what we heard last year. I mean, obviously we've heard that that people like it. You saw a lot of success with that, and so I just really appreciate that you took that on and looked at some of the other models that are working really well around the city. And so just congratulations and thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Yeah, similarly, I don't have any questions, though. This is just, it's a joy to listen to this, and it's nice to see so many community members come in and say thank you. And I've actually heard from community members about their interactions working with you specifically, and have such positive reviews. In future, I'd like to see even more recognized neighborhood associations take advantage of this program. Yeah, and it's just, I love this chart right here, and you can see the different things that are happening in the community that all inspire the community to actually practice community with one another. And I think that we really need that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Additional comments? All right. Well, thank you to our guest who came to say thank you. But not just for coming to say thank you, but thank you for your participation in this process. It's much appreciated. Brittany, thank you for your work. I remember last year around this time, we talked quite a bit about changing a lot to do with this process. And so it's a full circle moment. Within a year's time, we've made substantial changes to this. I love to see the expansion of the types of projects that the neighborhoods are looking to do and are looking to take advantage of the opportunity to request funding to do those efforts. So yeah, kudos for making this happen the next go around when we had to make this decision. And so many of these things are things that I very much appreciate, when I'm out and about around the community. And our neighborhoods are the heartbeat of the city. So I love going out to the neighborhoods and participating in the block parties and seeing the things that they care about and what is of concern to them. And also, frankly, seeing what they did with the funds, right? How did they put them to use? And I am in agreement with the Mayor Pro Tem about seeing more recognized neighborhood associations take advantage of the opportunity. We almost made it to having enough funding for everyone that applied. It was really close. So maybe in future years we'll make it, and that also includes more people being able to take part in it. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So if there are no further questions or comments, I'm ready to take a motion.
So moved. Let's pass this budget.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the 2026 neighborhood matching grant allocation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, your microphone, please.
Is it not on again? Oh, I'm gonna have to get used to that. Sorry. Okay. If you did not hear me, motion passes. And now we're going to move on to council reports. So I'm going to begin with the mayor's report, which is I do want to mention that over the spring break, the Opioid Abatement Council did convene, and we discussed the next stages or the process for RFP process or a request for proposal process to begin the process of having folks apply to receive funding from the opioid settlement funds. We have our allocation for the city is $1.2 million. We do understand that this fund is not ongoing, So we are looking for those opportunities of folks that could really use the dollars to do what they can. But anything that involves sort of like ongoing operations or the need for ongoing funding is going to be looked at with a lot of scrutiny. We are able to use some of the funding for administrative costs, but specifically when I'm looking at administrative costs, what I'll be looking for is how is that going to give us the biggest bang for our buck if we get folks that are applying, asking for funds for administrative purposes. So we will have to take action at a future council meeting sometime next month on how much of our settlement funds we're willing to give. We have 1.2 million, as I said. I believe our draft RFP that we have right now, we are looking to state that we are going to have $2 million of funds that we would like to put out into the community and have folks apply for within that budget. So my recommendation, and obviously I'll share more about this next month, but I'm recommending, because it's been so many years that we've been trying to get these funds out the door, that we give no less than 50% of our allocation. And so between all of the jurisdictions, it'll be that $2 million. And I think we just need to get these funds out the door to help serve people who are struggling. And so that will be my recommendation, and that will come before council next month. I was happy to attend the Olympia Fire Department's graduation yes, this past weekend on Saturday, and it was such an honor to be invited to deliver the keynote address. We had 7 recruits, is that right? 7 recruits that graduated this weekend, and wishing them all the best in their service in our fire department. And then lastly, I just want to mention that we have a study session next week for Tuesday, April 21st. Our next business meeting will be Tuesday, April 28th. And I will start to my right with Councilmember Madrone.
Yeah, on April 1st, the Lot Board held a retreat. We budget on a biennial basis, and so there's typically a retreat to kick that process off. And some of the things that we talked about in that retreat were the Class A+ pilot project. Again, this is treating our wastewater up to drinkable standards, and there's a demonstration project going on in Lot. It's the first of its kind in the state. And we talked about the budget needs around that. Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater all contributed to that project this year, and there may be another ask for us to do that in the next year. But it'll complement some of the work that's been happening there. We also had a presentation from Thomas Architect Studio. What Lot is getting a little bit space constrained as it's grown and filled out a lot of its offices. And one of the things that we're exploring is expanding the Wet Science Center into a separate building and being able to free up some space inside the administrative building. So we got some, small scale to large scale, pretty nice artistic renderings of what the future education center could look like. No decisions have been made, but the board did give direction to staff to continue to work with Thomas Architect Studio and kind of, hone in on what are the things that we really need to have, what would be really nice to have. And we're thinking about the expansion of the Hands-On Children's Museum and how this kind of complements what's going on in that area. So more to come on that as that moves forward. And then we also looked at our support and community programs for 2027 and 2028. So this includes like the Watershed Stewardship Program, which at this point, one of the projects that is funded in Olympia is being able to provide porta potties at an encampment. Water quality habitat and improvement, which is part of our agreement with the Squaxin Island Tribe to have funding that we put towards habitat restoration and water quality improvement projects in the area. The septic conversion program, sea level rise, our contributions to the Deschutes Estuary project, and also our affordable housing support program, which is reduced fees for connecting affordable housing to the sewer system. There has been a little bit of a struggle there with the City of Olympia because each jurisdiction gets a share of funding out of that, and then there's a shared pool for when you use all of your when a jurisdiction uses their share for a project, and Olympia always runs out first and then needs the shared pool, and then the other jurisdictions have resources, but they want to hold on to it in case there's a project that comes along. One thing we talked about is if there's any remaining resources from any of the jurisdictions at the end of the biennium, that all goes into the shared pool, and then that's additive for what we budget for the next year, so that the shared pool grows if there's unused resources. So that's one solution that we discussed for the high demand for that program. But overall, we're looking to be in pretty good shape for a lot. There's some exciting things around the corner, and I will keep you all posted. That's my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Madrone. Questions for Councilmember Madrone, Mayor Pro Tem Wood?
Yeah, I'm curious about the Wet Science Center. Is there any future where we wouldn't have a Wet Science Center? Is Lot definitely relocating it? That's the question.
Okay, you said so I was wondering if there's more coming.
I just I get nervous that we're gonna lose it.
No.
Okay.
There's no plan. No. We're either going to move a project forward and expand it, or we're going to keep the Wet Science Center as it is. So not having the Wet Science Center is not an option at this point.
Oh.
I don't know. That was a double negative. I don't know if that came out right. No. We're going to have a Wet Science Center.
Okay.
The question is, do we, make do with the space constraints and keep the Wet Science Center at the size that it is now, or do we construct an additional building on lot property to grow the Wet Science Center and relieve some of the space constraints inside lot? But there's no option that takes the Wet Science Center off the table. And there's some potentially exciting futures with the Wet Science Center in terms of what we could do if we decide to move forward with it.
It actually sounds exciting now. I was nervous. Okay. Before people take things away, they make it sound nice and then they take it away.
Okay.
Well, so I was nervous, but the chair of lot said it today on April 14th, 2026, that we are not losing it. So thank you.
Not the chair of lot, just the representative for Olympia on the board, but
excuse me.
But I apologize for making you nervous.
Yes, I get confused with the chair energy you often bring. Thank you.
Nice. That would be a bombshell to drop in reports. Councilmember Vanderpool.
You did say pool a lot, shared pool a lot. You mean of money?
Yes.
Just for the.
Yes, of money.
Yeah.
Funding resources. Yes.
Yes. You can tell that we have been off for a few weeks. I'm just getting back into it. So the Regional Housing Council met. We, as several of my council mates already know, and folks out there probably know, that we passed forward the letter for the Franz Anderson mixed unit change. The Quinn Street Village short-term funding was passed. There's an interest by the Regional Housing Council in process improvements in the organization, which I am all for. It is a interesting organization where we are always between. It always feels like we're between a bigger organization and a smaller organization. And are always trying to see so that as we get new members in the future, it's easier for onboarding and the process. It makes more sense. We also had a little bit of a conversation about what work plans look like in the future, looking at potentially moving back to hybrid, the possibility of work sessions. We had a lot of very good ideas of thinking about where we go from here to ensure that everyone feels like they're on the same level when they come to a meeting. And then we also had a little bit of a conversation about the opportunity to look at what legislative changes have passed this year and have a preview of that so that we know what changes are going to help us going forward. And then land use and environment met. We had a discussion on the manufactured home communities preservation. There was a very deep conversation. There was a lot of feedback we gave to staff. There's so much feedback, I couldn't even do it all in reports. I was looking at the notes, there's like 3 pages. But we'll be coming back to that one in the next few months, and we're going to continue to have that conversation about what solutions there are and effective ways to meet the needs of the community. And then we had a discussion about the Plum Street sub-area discussion. This is an ongoing conversation. Again, this is about scoping and trying to figure out the kind of focusing it as a corridor rather than a sub-area and trying to figure out where do we go from here. We also, upcoming, we're going to be having something new for land use, or we probably hadn't done it since I've been on council, is on land use, we're going to be trying to schedule a time to do a roundtable with groups like Northwest Cooperative Development Center, the Housing Land Trust, Habitat, the Family Support Center, to talk about the what is called the usually it's called a tenant opportunity to purchase, but we're talking about community opportunity to purchase. This is the idea of looking at how do we secure housing that could go out to the private market underneath folks. This has a little bit to do with what we're talking about manufactured housing. We're also talking about apartment buildings, 10 units or more, trying to say how do we get people, how do we model the language so it's easier for those organizations such as the ones that I mentioned, the nonprofits, can effectively help get some of the housing stock off the market and keep security for folks so that they continue to live in their homes into the future. I'm hopeful that bringing those folks in will help us guide what specific language we need. Right, I want to make sure we hear it directly from them, so that when we do pass a policy, it ensures that those organizations can run with it. Transportation Policy Board also met. We did some community rep interviews. We're expanding to 3 community members regionally. We had a very solid group of interviewees. It took, it was kind of hard to decide because we waited several months and we got a pool of 13 people, which was pretty good, right, for volunteering to be on that board. We also met, looked at call for projects, looked at public participation, planning, a little bit from the state and federal legislation updates regarding regional transportation funding. We're sustaining our funding, which is good, because that was the biggest nervousness that we had, was making sure that we sustain funding into the future. There's also ongoing conversations about the Nisqually Bridge and rail support. Lastly, tomorrow I am meeting, I'm at the Intercity Transit Authority is meeting, and one of the items, councilmates have gotten emails about this, and I'm sure you're hearing about it, is the Bus 41 campaign in West Olympia. That's the one that goes from Evergreen to downtown. A part of the update to the system, that bus would change numbers, and I forget if it's 32 or 33, and under the new system it would go to the mall and then downtown. And we're gonna have a little bit of a conversation tomorrow. We're gonna bring that up in the meeting and talk about making sure we meet the needs of the public, because there is a change petition that's out there for people in the community, and there's 117 signatures in 48 hours. So we probably should slow it down and make sure we meet the needs of folks in the community before we implement a change that could potentially affect a lot of folks. So that's my report.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Councilmember Vanderpool? All right, seeing none. I'm so glad that you're bringing the issue about the Bus 41. I was having a volunteer shift this past weekend, and
there were quite a few community members that came up and expressed their concerns, and I thought, it's not me. I'm not on that board. And it was on my list to chat with you, so I'm so glad that you're bringing that up. All right. So with that, I would turn it to myself, Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen, who has no reports, and now turning it to Councilmember Green.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I also have no reports.
Thank you. Councilmember Barron?
Thank you. I have several things I could talk about. One thing, however, I did want to use my time to talk about was the library. As everyone knows, there's been a controversy in the community about some would call it mismanagement of the library that's resulted in a large layoff, about 60 people, that has impacted our community. The city, of course, has an interest in this, in that we provide the property for the downtown library. We pay for the lease of the library facility at the mall. But what really struck me about this was kind of a failure of fiduciary responsibility by the board that oversaw the library. I feel there's a failure of management at the library that's resulted in this kind of surprise in the community, resulting in 60 people being laid off. So I talked to Jay about this at our last one-on-one, because it kind of drove home the point that we all have a fiduciary responsibility for the city, and it's always important that we are always using as much information as we can to make good decisions. Every now and then, an expenditure comes to me, and they say, "Oh, well, this is an added expenditure we want to vote in," and I personally feel that to some extent I don't have an adequate amount of information to make a good financial decision based on how much money the city has in the bank. Now, I want to say I have total confidence in our city, and I have confidence in the financial managers, but I think in this atmosphere of certain agencies in the public not being managed well, the more we can disclose financially to the public, to our members, to all of the members on the council, and upholding their fiduciary responsibility is going to serve us better, and it's going to serve the public better. I was pleased to see the expenditures on the consent calendar tonight. I think that's. But Jay had talked about the possibility of publishing a monthly balance sheet, whatever, on city finances that would just be disclosed in the monthly minutes. And I think this is a great idea. Anything we can do. I know that the city's moving forward on this public budgeting online system. But I think we need a standard report that is reported every month to the council on our financial status as a part of our fiscal fiduciary responsibility. So because we don't really have another venue to speak about this, I'm using my report time to talk about this. In the future, I'll also talk about things that I'm working on in the South Capitol neighborhood and the EMS committee I serve on issues related to how they're going about their billing, and ORCA. But I wanted to spend my time talking about this issue, which I think is very important, and I think we all have a role in it. And we have a finance committee that does see these numbers, but the full council doesn't see these numbers. And I think that it's important that we all uphold our fiscal fiduciary responsibility in being able to just see where we're at on a financial basis every month. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Barron. Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Yeah, I have a couple of clarifying questions that would help me. Because I think I got maybe I missed something, but it sounds like perhaps you're talking about two different things. So you started in talking about the library, and I know you're aware of our relationship with the library, and so. And then it ended with us just finding more kind of creative ways to be transparent with our budgeting. And so when it comes to partnerships like one that we have with the library, we have another one with the Washington Center, we have another one with Hands On. So are you saying that you want more information from them so that we can be abreast of what's going on?
Thank you for that question. I think that really what I'm saying is that the problems exhibited at the library are a warning shot to all of us to make sure that we are acting in a very transparent way to the public and upholding our fiduciary responsibility as members of the council. That's all. And I do want to say I have confidence in our finance committee members. I have confidence in the city manager, but I also believe full disclosure and a very transparent budgeting process builds community confidence that is really going to benefit us in the long run. And when we have to make tough decisions, it won't be a surprise to anyone should those times come.
Yeah, thanks so much, Paul. That's helpful. So I guess it really does go back to our budget and how we're being responsible with it. I'm open. Just to respond to you, I'm open to that. I am, like you had referenced during our retreat, where we're shown that budgeting dashboard, and that'll be that is open for the public. And so if we could, as much as we could do to kind of maybe not duplicate work, but just drive people to that dashboard. And if it does turn out that we've decided it's a wonderful idea to have an extra attachment to our agendas, like you were saying, I would just want it to be in full context. I think it's tough when, if I look at police or fire budget, or honestly any department here, and then in a vacuum, and folks just see the dollar amount, I think it's always like, wow, it seems like a lot, especially during a time where many folks are feeling increasingly pinched economically. And so, yeah, I just worry about, I want it to be sharing. That's the heart of what you're saying, is sharing and in transparency. And I wouldn't want to drum up folks like not quite understanding the numbers and only seeing that. And so as much as we can not duplicate the work and maybe draw more attention to the public dashboard, but I'm open. Those are just some of my thoughts. But I appreciate you thinking about what more we could do.
In response to that, I would say that, I'm sure that the city manager gets a monthly report on the balance sheets of the cities, so it wouldn't be any additional work. It would just be disclosing to a broader group of people.
Totally. And this, I don't want to ping pong too much with you. For the most part, I'm supportive. I'm just like, let's talk about what that looks like. The city manager, that's a good example. The city manager also is expected, definitely by me and the rest of council, I would say, to know what is going on with this organization, and has had many, many years here. So he can get something like a balance sheet, we'll say, and make sense of it and not have a lot of additional questions. And so I'm just thinking, how do we provide context with numbers? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it just needs to be a simple report that would be a standard report in most cities, frankly.
Thank you. Yeah, what I hear on this is when you say duplicative, Mayor Pro Tem, what I hear is we have the public-facing dashboard for priority-based budgeting. And so does it make sense to have that in addition to another one-pager that perhaps won't have context, but then also the expenditures that you see here in the consent calendar, that's a routine thing. So I don't know if you haven't, if this is your first time seeing those since you've been on council, but those are, we get those quite often for our review.
No, I know we get the expenditures, but what we don't get is the income and the balance sheets. So, so I think that it's important to have both sides. And as I said, when somebody sends me something and they're requesting a $30,000 expenditure or a $10,000 expenditure, I have no context on deciding, oh, gee, are we in a fiscal position where this is a very good idea, frankly? And so I'm uncomfortable relying on the dashboard. I think the dashboard is a wonderful tool for people who want to dig into the weeds, for people who want to dig into the weeds. For people who just want to compare month to month to month to month based on basic numbers, I think this other just balance sheet is very important.
Okay. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. And then we're going to have to move on. It's getting late.
Yes, I know. We're getting to, this is item 3 for business items now. But could we say that, I don't want to speak for all of us, though, could we say that the goal is how are we more transparent with our budget and agree that we're probably not going to figure it out tonight? Yeah, and that is an example of a possibility.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And last but not least, Assistant City Manager Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing to report, but I do want to compliment you, Councilmember Barron, on the financial transparency that you are seeking. I know that in conversations with Finance Director Mike Gibbons, he is working on developing those types of reports and will be making presentations to the Finance Committee for that. So it is in the works, I am confident. Thank you.
Yeah, I just heard Councilmember Madrone say we should have started there. And she's absolutely right. All right. Well, with no further business before the Olympia City Council, we're adjourned.